pick me up after services, you hear? Keep telling you I've got to keep up my image. You know, be seen in the proper places.
I'll be here, baby.
Sure you don't want to come in?
Not on your life, baby. I'm a lover, not a Christian.
Disobedient to parents, proud, murderers, rapists, traitors, and many other such things. Yet the Bible also says that something else is to occur in the last days. The 5th chapter of James tells us that God's going to send revival before Jesus comes back again. Thank God, this thought thrills my very soul. You too have the possibility of being in on it. Although God has promised to send the latter rains in the latter days, He has not promised to send it to America. This is the thing that concerns me. I'd like to see our country in on the latter rains. But unless you and I do what God wants us to do, He'll go to some other country. I'm disturbed about the brand of Christianity I see in this modern 20th century in our country. We see some strange young people in our land today. Mothers and daddies, what do you want for your young people? No doubt every one of you listening to me today would say, preacher, more than anything else, I want my son or daughter saved by the grace of God. If that takes place, it'll be in spite of a bunch of footmen that are running loose against your sons and daughters. And you say, preacher, I want my son or daughter to come to the marriage altar, pure and virtuous. I want my son and daughter to have something to live for and something to die for. If these ambitions are reached today, you're going to have to fight against a bunch of footmen that are running loose against our young people. We've got footmen running loose today that have not been running loose in a generation gone by. We'll see some of them in just a moment. But I see some strange young men and young women today. I see strange people coming to churches across the land. Not long ago, I stood up to preach in a certain congregation. A young lady stood up to sing, and she got catcalls from all over the house. You know why? She was dressed in a miniskirt 12 inches above her knees. But what was she singing? She was singing, I'll tell the world that I'm a Christian. It's a strange thing that a young lady should dress like the world and stand up and tell the world that I'm a Christian. When you get saved by the grace of God, it means a major change takes place in your life. But we can't blame these young people for what's going on today and let the adults go free. They are strangers because we have refused to get out and run against the things that the young people are having to face. Mother and daddy, are you willing to let your children be destroyed in the midst of this generation when you could do something about it? We're running against a strong footman in the way of our public school system today. When my daddy went to school in North Georgia in the early 1900s, they did not have all of the facilities that we have in our modern schools. They played games that were simple, like drop the handkerchief. And yet they did not feel shortchanged. They enjoyed it. Inside that old rundown schoolhouse, they excelled us by a city block. There they studied a masterpiece of a book, the McGuffey Reader. In the McGuffey Readers, our parents were not only taught to read, they were taught character. The virtues taught to my father at home and church were taught in the McGuffey Reader. Such is not the case in many present-day classrooms. Many modern teachers think it more necessary to teach sex than the 3 R's.
Boys and girls, as I have discussed with you many times before, I personally believe that premarital sex is necessary. And now we will go on to discuss the 7 erotic zones of passion in every woman. The first one is...
And they go on to teach worse things. Another footman that we must run against is the TV world. Are you aware of how much your child's actions and attitudes are controlled by television? The things they wear, the places they go, the things they do are directly related to television. For example, mother, are you aware of what your child is seeing on Saturday morning cartoons? You say cartoons? What could be wrong with that? Have you seen these cartoons? Programs motivated to lead your child into crime, into sex, into murder? Since the advent of TV, the crime rate in some areas has increased 1,000%. Ought you not to be concerned about what your child sees and hears? Do you realize what effect television has on a parent trying to read the Bible? He has a choice to make, either the Bible or the TV program. He soon closes the Bible to watch the program. Is this happening in your house? If so, ought you not to do something about it? Oh, how times have changed. They're adding so many more things to make our children go astray. Today we have the drive-in theater. Have you considered what goes on down there? It's nothing more than a spawning house for sex. What's shown on the screen is nothing but raw sex and violence, and there's no supervision. Another question. I'd like to know what's your attitude toward dancing. You say, preacher, times have changed. I don't see anything wrong with dancing today. Dancing is just as wrong as it's always been. You say, what's wrong with it? It's the front door to adultery. The thing that started on the dance floor is expected to be finished in a parked car or a motel somewhere. Another thing that ought to disturb us is the liquor traffic. Do you realize that 75% of our young people are drinking before they finish high school? Shall we tolerate this with simply a raised eyebrow? Well, if we can't stop these footmen, there are horsemen that will do something about it, and they are doing something about it. When you consider drug addiction in our colleges, high schools, and even in our grammar schools. Ladies and gentlemen, drug addiction is no fancy of our children's imagination. It's the creation of those people bound and determined to take over our country, and they're doing a pretty good job of it already. Just listen to these statistics. Over 47% of our returning vets from foreign wars, according to government reports, are already addicted to some kind of drug. Today in New York City alone, there are practically 1 death a day from drug addiction. And there are those among us who dare to advocate legalizing marijuana. Don't tell me the horsemen are not already running, and they're running just as hard to break up our homes. Magazines, newspapers, and television are all trying to make extramarital relationships appear all right. There are even those who advocate a 2-year trial marriage. The general public is beginning to accept multiple marriages, and even preachers are compromising at this point. There are preachers today who will marry anyone. It doesn't matter if the boy or girl's been married before. They'll marry them anyway. God's plan is for marriage till death. Too many of us today don't have time to come to church. We're busy all Sunday long joyriding. We have time to spend hours laughing and talking with our friends, but we can't give God even 1 hour of our time, either in the morning or in the evening. There are many men today who are hurting the church tremendously. They'll drive their family up to the church and let them out. The mother and children beg him to get out and to go into the church with them, but he will not. He has things more important than this to do. Someday, men like this will want a church to go to, but will find it's been closed. Only then will they realize what an awful thing they did in not going to church with their families.